Hey everybody, I'm Joe. We're talking about Marvel Multiverse and we're doing another character build. Here we go. In the original playtest document, there was not a ranged weapon power set, there was simply firearms. And a lot of players ignored firearms because it said in the description of the power set, and this was my experience with players didn't want to use explicitly lethal force when playing a superhero game. I totally understand where they're coming from. It's not the concept that they wanted to engage in. So the firearms power set, and it said this in the description, is mostly there for the narrator to build villains. This has been changed. Now it is the ranged weapons power set, and it is specifically allowed to have things that are non-lethal and have all the same types of builds and same damage multipliers and same powers that you can use in order to open up this style of gameplay and this power set. And so I want to explore this. I want to build a character today that is really exploring at least one way of looking at and getting into the ranged weapon power set, because this means we're going to interact with weapons. Take a look at the page on weapons in the core rulebook, and you're going to see a list of weapons, a range, and then a damage multiplier. The damage multiplier is almost meaningless, and that's because damage multipliers do not stack, as you know. And so let's take the pistol as an example. It's a damage multiplier of 1 for the pistol, and this can be added to your rank for a total damage multiplier. However, damage multipliers don't stack, and so if you have the accuracy 1 power, you would have to choose between accuracy 1 or the multiplier from the weapon. In either case, that's just a 1, but the second you have accuracy 2 or accuracy 3, the damage multiplier from the weapon is meaningless. So a character that has a ranged weapon is going to outgrow the multiplier at rank 1 or rank 2 at the latest. It's actually the range that I think is interesting. Frag grenades have a range of 10 spaces. The shotgun has a range of 6 spaces. The pistol has a range of 10 spaces. And that means that they are effective up to this range. However, if you are within 1 space of your target, then you have trouble on an attack with a ranged weapon. In other words, you need to move away from them. And that means that if you have a shotgun, you can't be at 1 space away, but you can't be farther than 6 or you have trouble again. So there's a very narrow range of distances where that weapon is appropriate. What I think is interesting is some of the other properties of these weapons. For instance, the submachine gun, it says in the description, can attack 3 targets with a single action. And you make 1 attack roll that is going against all of their defense scores, and you do half damage. So there is a built-in way of doing a multi-target attack with this weapon, and one day I might build that as a character. It's a built-in multi-target attack that costs no focus. That's really good. The one that I want to focus on, though, is the rifle. You see, the rifle has a range of 20 spaces. The sniper rifle has a range of 40 spaces, but they have a minimum range of 5 spaces. In other words, this is only for far away targets. That's pretty interesting. The sniper rifle in particular is worth taking a look at. You can attack somebody up to 40 spaces away, which is 200 feet. And most powers in the game do not have a range of 40 spaces. In other words, with a sniper rifle, you can attack enemies that are so far away that they cannot attack you back most of the time. That's fantastic. I would love to be in a position where I can attack my enemies and have no threat from them whatsoever. It's a good gameplay style. It's a good tactical decision. Honestly, this is a good just concept overall, which is why it's a very good concept in real world combat zones. But for our purposes, let's build around the sniper rifle. Let's see how good we can make it when we want to attack at range and really lay down some punishing attacks. I'm not that great at naming my characters, so if you have a name for this hero, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below, but for the moment, I'll be calling him the Sniper. Our purpose for this character is to attack at the greatest range possible, which means I don't care about my melee score. So let's do point buy, and I'm going to dump melee to a -3. I'm going to take agility to a 4, resilience to a 2, vigilance to a 2, and nothing for ego and logic. If anybody is attacking with ego or logic, they're going to hit us, almost assuredly for the entirety of this character's career, but hopefully we're going to be so far away that it won't matter. We're going to have defenses of 14s for melee and agility due to powers, 12s for resilience and vigilance, and 10s for ego and logic. As far as equipment goes, make sure you have a sniper rifle, and ideally, you're going to want to have some sort of a short range weapon, a shotgun or a pistol, just in case you're in close quarters. You can't always count on being far away from the enemy. Let's take a look at our occupation. I'm going to choose spy for this. I think it just fits with this kind of feel of being the secretive, shadowy figure attacking from distance. And I think that the spy persona is really going to work. It's also going to give us a couple interesting traits. The first trait this is going to give us is connections for espionage. You talk about an interesting world of NPCs that your narrator is going to get to build when you have the espionage connections trait. It's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure to have a bunch of fun characters and call them regularly. You're just going to love all of the lore and all of the story that this is going to create. The next trait we're going to get is leverage. I don't love this trait. If you saw the videos that I made ranking all of the traits, I think that it's just hard to use. But at any rate, we get an edge on logic checks to investigate people and on ego checks to persuade people that we have investigated. Hard to use because it asks you to invest in both of your offensive mental stats, and we're doing neither. Of course, the power set we're going into at rank 1 is going to be the ranged weapons power set, and it's going to be the predominant power set we're in, but not the only one. The first power we're going to take is evasion, which allows us to use our agility defense for melee attacks, just in case someone gets close to us. This is just essential for a good ranged combatant, and you saw this demonstrated in the defense scores that I showed you a minute ago. The next power we're going to take is accuracy 1, giving us a 1 damage multiplier for all attacks that use our agility for our attack stat. Next, we're going to take sturdy 1 for a 1 damage reduction. This character is going to be pretty easy to hit with ego and logic attacks. And as a result, I don't want so much of a glass cannon kind of feel, so we're taking sturdy 1 now. Next, we're going to take double tap. I don't love this power, but it is necessary for other stuff. We make a ranged attack against an enemy within 2 spaces, meaning that this is for those times when someone gets physically close to us. We can now actually shoot them back without trouble. If the attack is a success, they take normal damage. If it's a fantastic success, they take double damage, and they have the bleeding condition, which is nice. The trait we're going to take is combat reflexes, which gives us an additional reaction. And at the moment, we have nothing to spend it on. I have no reaction powers whatsoever right now, but I just need to have this already in the bank for when I have reaction powers, because when I pick those up, I'll have other traits I need to take at that time. Combat is really simple for us. Find a target and shoot them. That's it. That's the entire plan. And when you do, you're going to do, on average, 11 damage per round. Okay, let's do rank 2. I'm going to take agility to a 5, resilience to a 3, vigilance to a 5, and nothing for ego and logic. This is going to give us defenses of 15 for melee, agility, and vigilance, 13 for resilience, and 10s for ego and logic. You're going to notice I am really cranking up the amount of vigilance. That is specifically so that I have a lot of focus. We're going to burn through a bunch of focus later in the character's career, and we need this. The first power we're going to take is iconic weapon. This means that one of our weapons is something that is just a part of our being in some way, and While you might be able to negotiate this getting kind of fancy with your narrator, at minimum you should be able to negotiate that every time you use this weapon you have an edge on the attack. Edges do stack, and that's going to be really important for us. And we are of course taking our sniper rifle as our iconic weapon. The next power we're going to take is Accuracy 2, which gives us now a 2 damage multiplier for all attacks that are made using our agility, and a +2 to any non-attack rolls that we do using agility, which comes up. Next power we're going to take is Sniping. Sniping requires both our action and our movement. We cannot move on a turn when we use Sniping, but if we are 40 spaces away, who cares? We're not going to move anyway. It costs 5 points of focus, which is a little annoying, but it's worth it because we make a ranged attack. The subject must be at least 20 spaces away. Upon a regular success, they take damage, but upon a fantastic success, they take triple damage. That's right. Triple damage is now on the table. So grabbing this and grabbing combat trickery would be a really nice thing to pull off. We are not going to rely on that for the purposes of this build, but it is one good way to go. The next power we're going to take is Stopping Power. We make a ranged attack against an enemy. Upon a regular success, they take damage. Upon a fantastic success, they take double damage, and we get to make another ranged attack against the same target. This won't come up a bunch, but when it does, it's going to be awesome, and it costs only 5 points of focus, so not bad. The next power we're going to take is Suppressive Fire. So this is a regular action, and we attack a target's vigilance defense, which is interesting. Upon a regular success, they're going to take damage. Upon a fantastic success, they take double damage and are stunned. But here's the thing, this attacks focus, not health. Now, that's a little disappointing. There's a number of powers that are going to deplete focus. I built a character recently where we attacked focus, and we showed that it is a really good and viable strategy. It's just not what I necessarily want for this character, but this helps us get some other powers. Anyway, reducing focus is good. They can no longer concentrate on powers. They can't willingly spend focus on their interesting powers. You're going to cripple an enemy by depleting their focus. So this definitely has value, and we're going to be depleting a lot of focus on this character as a result. The trait we're going to take at this rank is Signature Attack for Sniping, which means that now when we snipe, we get a double edge. And remember, upon a fantastic success, they take triple damage. So you're going to get that triple damage a reasonable amount of the time, which is awesome. Anyway, combat is basically setting ourselves up 20 spaces away and sniping our favorite target. And when we pull that off, we're going to do on average 19 damage per round, which is only okay. Let's go ahead and do point buy for rank 3. We're going to take agility to a 6, resilience to a 6, and vigilance to a 6. This is going to give us defenses of 16 for melee, agility, resilience, and vigilance, and 10s for ego and logic, which I have done nothing with. The first power we're going to take is Accuracy 3 for a 3 damage multiplier for all attacks that are made using agility. You knew that we needed this. The next power we're going to take is Sturdy 2. Sturdy 2 is going to give us a 2 damage multiplier. This has probably been sorely needed on this character, considering how easy we are to hit with ego attacks, but we should have some survivability now. We're finally going to get to start using reactions, and the first reaction power is Return Fire. Return Fire is great. It's a reaction power that is triggered when an enemy declares an attack against the character. Because they declare the attack as the trigger, our attack happens first, which is pretty awesome. This costs 5 points of focus. We make an agility attack against a vigilance defense, and we attack focus. Upon a regular success, they take focus damage. A fantastic success is double damage, and they're stunned for 1 round. The next power is going to be Covering Fire. This is another reaction power, and this is triggered when an ally within our line of sight begins his or her turn. That's it. They just have to begin a turn, and we get to shoot somebody. This costs 10 points of focus, and it's just like our other reaction power. It attacks focus, doing regular damage on a regular success, double damage on a fantastic success, and a fantastic success stuns the enemy. So just think about what triggers reactions. Our allies starting their turns and enemies declaring attacks against us. It is valid on a lot of my character builds to assume that the reaction triggers do not happen. And so the damage that I report being possible is going to be a little rare, but not in this case. Those two triggers are going to happen a lot. Right now we have 2 reactions. So as long as you have 2 allies, you will get to use both reactions for covering fire if you choose to use them. But the real thing that we want at this rank is headshot. This is a regular action. It does cost 15 points of focus. We make a ranged attack at an enemy with trouble, and upon a success, they take double damage. Upon a fantastic success, they take triple damage and are stunned for 1 round. So I'm just going to tell you right now that the trait we're taking at this rank is going to be signature attack for headshot, giving us an edge on the attack. And I'm doing that to cancel out the trouble that the power gives us. This means that instead of having trouble on our headshot, we now have a single edge. And a single edge on an attack that does double or triple damage is amazing. This is why we've been ramping focus this whole time. I'm willing to give up my logic and ego checks and my logic and ego defenses in order to reliably get triple damage some of the time, with the ability to attack focus with 2 reactions every single round of combat. And we're doing it all from 20 to 40 spaces away. This is going to significantly help out our damage, and let me explain it to you right now. We are going to do a headshot as our action, 2 reactions. Maybe they're return fire, maybe they're covering fire. It doesn't really matter. They're going to do the same amount of damage either way. But if we pull all of that off, we'll be doing 108 damage per round. This has skyrocketed since our last rank, and it's only going to get better from here. Rank 4 is where this all comes together into a really nasty package. We're going to take agility to a 7, resilience to a 7, vigilance to a 7, and ego to a 2. We finally get some ego inside of this character. That's great. We're going to have defenses of 17 for melee, agility, resilience, and vigilance, 12 for ego, and then a 10 for logic. We're going into a new power set at this rank. I bet you can guess what it is, and I promise I am not going to be doing this on all characters, but I just want to take one character and crazy max it out, and so we're going into the super speed power set. You go into super speed for one reason and very few others, and that is to take lightning actions. Lightning actions is frankly poorly designed by how good it is. There are 3 components to lightning actions. You get an additional action every round of combat without an additional expenditure of focus. You get an additional reaction every round of combat without an additional expenditure of focus, and you automatically get a fantastic success on your initiative checks. This is an amazing power, and I think it should be in the game. My problem is that it has no prerequisites except for being rank 4. I have skirted this rule and bypassed it in other builds. I did not do that here, even though I could have. It would have just delayed some of our other things that we got. But it is going to do monstrous things for our damage. But before we get there, we're going to take accuracy 4 for a 4 damage multiplier for all attacks using agility. We're going to take combat trickery so that we can, once per combat, turn the Marvel die over to a 1, guaranteeing a fantastic success. You better believe I'm doing this with a headshot to get triple damage. And then we're going to take kill zone, which is possibly the best reaction power in the game, at least offensively speaking. It does cost 15 points of focus, but it is a reaction, and the trigger's amazing. An enemy within our line of sight moves. That's it, they start to move. They don't even have to finish moving. They start moving, they get 1 square essentially, and we can shoot them. Unlike our other reactions, this does health damage, not focus damage. The downside is it is 15 points of focus, it is expensive, that's why we've been ramping focus this whole time, but we get to start doing a monstrous amount of attacks. Here's the way this works. An enemy starts to move, triggering our reaction. We use our reaction to shoot them. Upon shooting them, our reaction resets. An enemy can only be targeted by kill zone once per every round of combat. But what this means is if you initiate kill zone, you can use it every enemy on the battlefield who moves. Every single one of them. We're going to assume that this is 3, but if you had 10 enemies and they all moved, you could use 10 reactions and shoot them. And since it resets that single reaction, and we right now have 3 reactions, this is only eating up 1. We're still gonna have 2 for covering fire, for instance. By the way, the trait we're taking at this rank is Battle Ready, which gives us an additional 30 points of focus. Trust me, we're gonna need it. So let's take a look at damage. We get 2 actions. We're spending both of them for headshot. We get a reaction for kill zone, which lets us, for our calculations, shoot 3 targets. We still have 2 more reactions, which let's assume we're using for covering fire. If you pull all of that off, we're doing 315 damage per round, and 70 of that is for focus damage. Let's go ahead and do point buy for rank 5. I'm going to bring agility to an 8, resilience to an 8, vigilance to an 8, ego to a 4. This is going to give us defenses of 18 for melee, agility, resilience, vigilance, 14 for ego, and 10 for logic. I have everything I need out of my ranged weapons, and now I'm looking to add some mobility to the character. We probably should have been adding mobility a little while ago. I just didn't have the room for it. But the reality is we need to get a certain distance away from our enemies, and building mobility into the character so that we can do that is going to be helpful, and we're going to do it through the Spider Powers power set. So yes, we are going into a new power set at this rank, but first we're going to take Sturdy 3 for a 3 damage reduction, always useful on any character build. Next, we're going to take web casting. I kind of need this for other stuff. It's a big prerequisite inside of Spider Powers. I don't anticipate using it, but we do get to make a ranged attack, which we are very good at. Upon a success, we paralyze an enemy, which is amazing. Upon a fantastic success, they are also pinned. Breaking free of the webbing requires a melee check of 20, which at this rank, any reasonable melee-oriented character will do without a lot of difficulty, but anybody else might struggle against all the way through the end of the game. The one thing about webcasting is its range is 10 spaces, so it's really good if we find ourselves closer to the enemies than we ideally want. We can use this and then get away. We really took webcasting so that we can take web slinging. This gives us a swing line speed that is equal to 3 times our running speed. So we should have incredible mobility from this point onward, as if we didn't already. And then we are going to take blur. Now, this is going to be a little difficult for us to use because it does require our action or a reaction, which are normally spoken for. But if we feel that we are truly in danger, we can initiate it, and it costs 5 points of focus, lasts for 1 round, and all incoming attacks have trouble, which is pretty great. The trait we're going to take is situational awareness. Situational awareness gives us an edge on initiative checks. Now, it's important to note we already are maxing out our roll for initiative, and with lightning actions, we automatically turn the Marvel die over to a 1 for a fantastic success on an initiative check. This is going to allow us to re-roll one of the other 2 die. What we really want in an ideal world is to go in our surprise round and then go first during the normal initiative roll tracker, meaning we would get 2 turns in a row. I don't know much that would survive that. Speaking of which, when it comes time for combat, we're going to do 2 headshots, we're going to do a kill zone, and then 2 additional reactions, probably with covering fire. And if we pull all of that off in a single round of combat, we're going to do on average 355 points of damage on the board, 79 of which is going to be focus damage. let's go ahead and finish this character off with point buy for rank 6. We're going to bring agility, resilience, and vigilance all to a 9 and ego to a 6. This will give us defenses of 19 for melee, agility, resilience, vigilance, 16 for ego, 10 for logic. I'm not going into a new power set at this rank. I'm just going to take some powers that kind of flesh out the mobility of the character, and we're going to start with speed run 1. I wish I could have taken this last rank or even 2 ranks ago, and if you prioritized it instead of other stuff, I certainly wouldn't blame you. But speed run 1 is going to give us a new in-combat run speed of our normal run speed times our rank, which is 180 feet. And that is for your running speed. But remember, our swing line speed is 3 times our running speed. So we can now swing line at 540 feet per round of combat. Next, we're going to take Sturdy 4 for 4 damage reduction, which, as always, is just a wonderful thing on any character build. Next, we're going to take Spider Sense. Spider Sense gives us a lot of stuff, but first, another edge on initiative checks, which is, if you're keeping track, 2 edges and a guaranteed fantastic success with a +9 to the initial roll. We are going to have amazing initiative on this character. Second, it gives us an edge on vigilance checks to perceive danger, and enemies have trouble on agility-based checks to bypass our vigilance defense. Lastly, we get a permanent +2 bonus to our agility defense, bringing our agility and melee defense from 19 to 21 permanently with no action required. Next, we're going to take wall crawling, which gives us a climb speed equal to our 180 feet per round of combat running speed. So we can zip up walls, jump off of them, and swing line enormous distances really without any difficulty. We also, under normal circumstances, cannot lose our grip on vertical surfaces. Lastly, for us, we're going to take Jump 1, which gives us a jump movement speed that is equal to our 180 feet run speed, which means that we can jump vertically 180 feet straight into the air. With all of this mobility, I'd be crazy not to take Free Running as our last trait. Free Running, you'll remember, gives you an edge on all movement checks, not just running. And we have a lot of movement: swing lining, jumping, crawling up walls, and running. We now have an edge on all checks associated with that movement. Combat for us is the same as it has been for a few ranks. It's going to be 2 headshots, 1 kill zone, which ideally for us will target at least 3 combatants, and then 2 more reactions, probably for covering fire. If we pull all of that off on the board, we're going to do 396 points of damage in a round of combat, 88 points of which will be to focus. Let's take a look at this character in some final thoughts. If you take the damage that we output on average each round of combat and average it together over 6 ranks, we have broken 200 points of damage. It's 200.6667 or something like that. So we're doing a monstrous amount of damage. Now, it's not all to health, and it is majority to a single target, but not all of it. All of that said, we're still doing the majority of this to a single target. So I am counting this as a single target build. That makes it do significantly more damage than the Fast Blade, which did 177 points of damage on average, more than the Wisecracker, which did 139 points of damage on average, and that was mostly just to focus. This character is doing almost as much focus damage as the character built to do focus damage. And that's not its main shtick. Its main shtick is doing huge amounts of health damage and having reactions that trigger at ridiculous moments. If a character starts a turn, a character moves, we get to shoot them, and we get to do it at huge distances. Is it always going to work? Well, the answer is no, because in the end, we have to be a certain distance away for our sniping to work. And a lot of the things that we want to use, our sniper rifle, some of our powers, require that we don't move, or they require that the target is a certain distance away, but we're still doing huge amounts of damage if we use a shorter range weapon and we are close up. So I think this character is very viable in almost any scenario, but the more that we operate outside at range and get to prepare the landscape of the battle, the better this character does. But then we take a look at the Spider Powers power set, where I was able to start climbing up walls, I was able to start jumping, I was able to start swing lining, and I took several powers in this power set. But you have to ask yourself, is taking all of that stuff mechanically better than just flying? And the answer is no. If you want to add mobility to a character, flight is, in almost all respects, better. It's just better. It gives me the vertical and the horizontal distances that I want and interacts with the speed run powers. So yeah, we go into spider powers, I think, for thematic and flavor purposes, but I'm actually not really impressed by the power set in its ability to deliver better mobility than flight, which, you'll remember, flight does not require us to go into any new power set. It is a basic power set. And as a result, I kind of built something that felt more flavorful with this character going into spider powers, but it's not necessarily mechanically better. At the end of the day, though, I love this. I love the ability to just do huge amounts of damage and to really utilize reactions. If there was any lingering doubt that the best way of ramping damage in this game is to add actions and reactions rather than simply to add damage to an attack, this should do it right here. And I've got a perfect analysis for that. So I built a character a little while ago that, under ideal circumstances, did more damage than anything I think else is possible in this game. The bodybuilder could attack upwards of several hundred people at once if they were clumped together, and in those circumstances was able to, at the end of the character's career, do 20,000 points of damage to a large number of people. But if you took that character and assumed that they were attacking only 3 characters, then it averaged out in damage 158 points over the whole career. Meaning that the bodybuilder, by growing to the size of a skyscraper, picking up an airplane and throwing it at people, that character does less damage than this guy with a gun. And I don't know how I feel about that. At the end of the day, more damage is more damage, but the significant damage possible from one character making one enormous attack is just not as good as doing lots of reactions. Think about that when you're looking at designing a character in this game. And I've got to tell you, as I build characters, it is going to be difficult to move away from this multi-reactions and lightning actions trick, because I know anything else I do is going to suffer in damage comparison. But I have to be willing to do it just to explore lots of different varieties of characters. Anyway, that is the build. I hope that you enjoyed it. YouTube is made out of buttons. I hope you press some of them. I'll see you next time. All right, peace.